All right.
Hello, BookTube. I'm here, and I'm here with a guest. As you can see, it's my old friend Deb. Hello.
Hey, BookTube.
How are you? How are things?
Steve, I am good. How are you?
I'm
How
fine.
is BookTube?
Oh, they're all fine. They're gloating in triumph because I told them for the better part of a year that this was a 12-nay channel. And everybody kept telling me, nope, you're going to hit 12K. And then we did. So now they're all gloating.
Nice.
And several.
So, all you new viewers, hello.
Yes. Introduce yourself, why don't you?
My name is Deb. I'm an old colleague of Steve, and I love to read. I love talking to you guys. I love dogs. My dog is sleeping on my bed. My chair is really squeaky. I'm sorry.
My baby's right here next to me. I don't know if you're going to be able to see her. She's right there. There you go. She's right. Hi, baby.
Oh, my little ball of fluff is very, very sleepy. He's happy to be back.
And it's an odd confluence, BookTube, that you're seeing. Deb can attest that for years, I made fun of her for having little dogs. And now I have one of my own. I said it would never happen to me. And it did, and I love it. So
well, once you get a little dog, they're a delight.
The one thing that you never told me about in all the years that I was making fun of you on this is how much easier they make everything than having a bigger dog. It's so much easier. In any kind of problem, I can simply pick Frida up.
That's true.
I don't have to.
If they're getting into something, you just pick them up.
Yeah,
if they go nuts on the street barking at another dog, you just pick them up. Yeah, it's much easier.
A lot of the new people to this channel won't have any idea that I ever had dogs in the past, but you will, and you will not therefore know what I mean when I say that I did not really know what it was like to be able to easily pick up a dog when my dog was Lucy. It's not easy to pick up Lucy. It was not easy to
Lucy was not easy to budge. No. If she wanted to be somewhere, you just let her be.
I have many photographs of, remember, for years and years, I used to have people over every Friday night, and the Lucy would ooze her way from one person to another. And I realized the other day when I was looking at my photos, how many of them all look the same, where it's a wide shot of a room full of people, and they've all got wine glasses, and they're all talking, except for one person who's like, because they can feel their spleen exploding because they've got this basset hound sprawled all over them.
Yes.
Who can't be moved. You couldn't move her. Once she was there, you couldn't move her.
No. Anyway. And you couldn't get her up. You couldn't get her up onto a piece of furniture if she didn't. Well, even if she was trying to help, it was a difficult.
Her tiny little legs. Her limbs were almost as vestigial as yours. Yours aren't any good.
Mine barely work.
So for those of you who aren't familiar, this is Mrs. D. This is Deb, and we have a formula on these Manatee Mondays. Because if we don't have a formula, Deb will ooze all over the place like an undercooked souffle. She needs, like all women, she needs structure in her life.
Oh, Mr. D.
I'm not gonna. I can call you Mrs. D,
not improved
but I can't
you
call you
one bit.
I can't call you pet at all in these videos because I'm already canceled. I don't want to be extra canceled. But we are going to impose a structure, and the structure is my aches and pains, my stories, and then my books. Because Deb and I are YouTube's seedy, disreputable grandparents. We're the grandparents from the side of the family where you really only send the kids as a last resort.
Yes.
So
where you warn you.
You go ahead. What are your aches and pains this time around?
My aches and pains. Suddenly, I can't remember my ache. Oh, why did I not write this down?
You always have a baker's dozen.
Why did I not write this down?
You want me to go first? Give you time?
Yes, go first. Go first.
My ache and pain this time around is familiar to all of my listeners. And you'd think after all this experience, I would be able to avoid it, but no, it's a paper cut. A
No, no,
horrible
no, no,
paper
no,
cut,
no.
just the really bad kind. You know, the minor, you get minor ones all the time, but every once in a while you get one, and the minute it happens, you know that's going to be really bad. And it is. It's really, really bad. I got a really bad paper. No idea how it happened. He says in a room full of books. Nevertheless,
Can't imagine.
that's my ache and pain. It's a paper cut. But because I'm a million years old, I get to complain about it.
Okay. Well, I just remember what my ache and pain is. My pain today is I'm cold. My room is cold. If you can see in the background, I have one of these old-fashioned
Oh, old metal
radiators.
radiator. Look at that.
Yeah.
So it's not
So when
working? Those things are infamous for working too well.
so basically when the heat comes on in the building, the radiator puts out heat. When the building's heat is not on, the radiator gives no heat, and there's nothing I can do. Like I can't set my temperature to be higher or lower than what the building is doing.
I have a friend in New
So
York who has the opposite problem. It's the same thing. The radiator only gives off heat when the building's heat is running and he has no control over it. But for him, the thing is always blasting hot. It's
that was the
tropical.
way that was the way this building used to be and my old building used to be, but I don't know, they must have recalibrated the furnace or something. And so now it requires me to be, you know, blankied.
And for those
Just
of you who
to,
might be wondering why Deb's background looks so unformed, her background would
and that will
ordinarily
be
be
my
as full of
story.
books. We're getting to that. You'll
That
be
will be my
getting
story.
more details on that than you or I or anybody wants.
No,
But
nobody
anyway,
will want
so
that many
we'll
details.
move on from
Okay.
there to my story. So we've got the perfect lead, and you might as well go ahead. Your story
Okay.
involves the fact that you've recently moved indoors from having lived out in the lean-to for a long time, right?
My story is that in June of 2020, the roof of my apartment building leaked, and it leaked into it came through 4 floors worth of apartments, and it destroyed the kitchen, bathroom, and hallway of my apartment. So my bedroom, my housemate's bedroom, and the spare bedroom and the living room were fine. So none of our possessions were destroyed. It just destroyed the kitchen, the bathroom, and the hallway. So they came in and they ripped out the walls of the kitchen, bathroom, and hallway. So since June of 2020, there have been no walls in my kitchen, bathroom, or hallway. Just plastic sheeting covering the empty wall that would have been the bathroom wall
Summer of 2020.
of 2020. Now, so we decided as a building that the 2 units that were being rented were up for rent in the fall of 2020 were where the contractors would start. And so they redid the 3rd floor, they redid the basement apartment. The 2nd apartment and our apartment were going to be the last apartments. Then COVID became a thing, and it just everything kind of went to hell. And so we've been kind of struggling with a half-finished apartment since then, and it's required like stuff to be all moved around, stuff to be crammed in the spare room, like all the stuff in all the kitchen supplies were all crammed in everything out of the cupboards went into the spare room. Then they decided they would need to, since they had to redo the electricity in the hallway, the kitchen, and the bathroom, they decided they would also do the electricity in my room, like rewire and bring it up to code and all of that. So I had to take everything out of my room and move it into the spare room. And so they did that over when I was in Maine during the Christmas, New Year's holidays. So I have come back to a very empty room because all it contains right now is my bed, my bookshelves, my desk. That's because I moved those things back into my room. And slowly I will be moving in my books and I never, Steve mentioned the lack of decorations on the wall. I've never had a lot of decorations on my wall, but that's why it looks so darn empty behind me, is because like this bookshelf would
Yeah.
normally be groaning with the weight of books.
And it will
But
be.
all the books, and
Right?
it will be
You'll
again.
gradually move things in there.
Yes. And when I move things in, because I do have a hoarding issue, as I move things back in, I'm going to organize them and try to dispose of whatever I can dispose of.
The only thing
So,
that's empty in this room, you can sort of make it out, it's that shelf up there. See that top shelf? Not the one with Barnesy the Noble Bear, but the one underneath.
Next to Barnesy.
Next to Barnesy. The top shelf of that middle bookcase is empty.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because I am thinking that in the course of 2022, this is my little book room. This is where my favorite books go. And I am thinking that in the course of 2022, I'm going to find that many books to add to this room. We'll see.
I think you'll find more.
I'll find a lot of books in 2022, but I mean the extra special ones, the special ones that come in here and stay forever. I don't find a whole lot of those. I don't know. I'm right now. You might be right. I might need 3 times that much space, but right now I'm thinking that's good enough. I haven't even begun to accumulate books for 2022 yet. I haven't begun to hunt for them yet. So who knows? But okay, but so that's your story. Is that you have
That's my story.
walls, you have
and
electricity,
I'm
you have
very
indoor
excited
plumbing.
because it feels.
You have indoor plumbing. So
Yes.
you have upgraded from life in Maine. Because Maine doesn't have any of those things. you have electricity, you have walls, you have indoor plumbing. And you're just going to start
all those things now. And the indoor plumbing has an actual 4th wall now. So
for which we're all grateful.
it was so strange because the bathroom had one plastic sheeted wall, but that's also where the door to the bathroom is. So the door was fine. So you had a door, you could go in and close the door, but the wall was wide open. So it was pretty funny.
It's a little concerning though. I mean, it's always exciting to have a new room to fill and personalize. It's a little bit concerning that the radiator is cold as iron. That's not good. There's nobody you can talk to about the heat. These next couple of days are going to be bitterly cold.
I can fiddle with the level. I mean, it does come on. It warms my room. Normally it comes on in the evening because I think they figure like people aren't home during the day. Mm-hmm. So it will come on in the evening and the evening will be fine. And the nighttime is always good. Like when you're sleeping.
Good.
It puts out enough heat so that I'm not sleeping cold. And it's just in the afternoons, it gets a little cold.
The way I can tell if this room gets cold at night.
I think they've set it so that it, to save.
Uh-oh. Is your internet cutting out?
Oh, you're kind of buffering.
So are you.
What happened?
Uh-oh. That's not good.
Oh, am I back now?
It's hard for me to tell. When your video is buffering, you suddenly have awkward pauses, but you have awkward pauses anyway. So it's hard for me to tell.
No, you were awkwardly pausing as well. And you never awkwardly pause.
Butter, baby. Butter.
You do many things awkwardly, but that's not one of them.
I don't talk awkwardly. No, I do lots of other things awkwardly, but I don't talk.
Yes. Yes.
Well, anyway.
So YouTube, I'm sorry.
About my stories is to go from your room to our country. My story is my mounting frustration with this January 6th committee that is designed to investigate the violent insurrection that Donald Trump incited on January 6th of last year on live TV in full view of the entire world. People in Moldavia were watching that footage and saying, oh, look, he's inciting a riot on the Capitol. And yet we have a committee that's investigating what happened. And it's driving me nuts. It doesn't even have any legal binding. It can't indict anyone. And that's what's necessary. And that's driving me nuts. The more I read about it, they're making slow progress. They're thinking really hard about inviting Mike Pence to come and talk to the committee. They're thinking really hard about doing that. How about subpoenaing Donald Trump? the guy who incited the insurrection that everyone saw happen. There's not a single person anywhere in the world
It is disgusting.
who wonders who was responsible for that insurrection. The January 6th committee, when the members of it go on, cable news, they say that they're trying to get to the bottom of what happened. Everyone in the world knows what happened, and yet they won't call this guy. They won't subpoena the guy who's responsible.
Well, half of America doesn't know what happened.
They know. I feel
half of America doesn't know what happened.
The members of that half of America who are trying to deny January 6th, you'll notice what they say. They say it can't have been Donald Trump. It can't have been the Republicans. It had to be Antifa. And you notice what they're not saying. Most of them don't say it didn't happen. And most of them don't say it happened, but it wasn't bad. They're just American enough, even now, to know that that is really bad. And so they say it can't be our guys that did it. I take a tiny amount of comfort from that, but there's still a kernel of them that understands that that is bad. And that's why they're trying to shift the blame. They're not, most of them aren't embracing it. They aren't saying if our guys did it, it's good. They're saying it is incontestably bad. And so our guys can't be responsible. I think in a warped kind of way, that's actually a cause for a tiny bit of hope. But even so, if you're not subpoenaing Donald Trump, and they're not, and they're clearly not going to, and what drives me crazy about it is that they are playing it as a political procedure. Let's drag this out. Let's make it really slow. Let's take our time. Let's contemplate and then prefer recommendations to the Justice Department or whatever, instead of acting quickly. And the reason they're doing that is because they want this to be hitting the headlines at the midterm elections for political advantage, for political reasons. I want to scream at these people, at Benny Thompson or Jamie Raskin or whatever. I want to scream at them. The people you're investigating are not playing politics. They want to take over the country with force. When they do, they're going to execute you. They're not going to inquire into you or put a polite request to you. They're going to murder you. They're going to murder you. And you're playing this for politics. The only reason it seems to me that you would play this for politics is if on some level you thought it's inconceivable that this is ever actually going to change. No insurrection is ever actually going to work. No one's ever actually going to tell me, salute Donald Trump or I'll put a bullet in your head. So we might as well play it for politics. And that is totally wrong. It's just, I don't want to go on. We did set a time limit, but that's my story, is this ridiculous political farce that's going on when it's the lifeline of the country. If it were gerrymandering or voter manipulation or voter suppression or politicians lying when they get in front of a camera, that would be one thing. But this was armed people attacking the Capitol. That's completely different. That's not politics anymore. And anyway, we can move on to my book. It maddens me. That's all. Because I'm not going to leave the country. So I'm stuck with whatever happens in the next 2 years. And that maddens me. It just maddens me. Congress has the legal authority to arrest people who don't supply with subpoenas. Congress does not have to submit anyone to the Department of Justice. They have their own legal authority. They could arrest Donald Trump if he refuses a subpoena. They have an inherent contempt capacity in Congress. It's legal. It's part of the Constitution. And they're not going to exercise it. And if you're not going to exercise it now, I don't know when you're going to. Anyway.
Yeah, that is true.
Let's move on to books. Books are nice and safe.
Where's the line? So my books. The first book I read in January was called The Library of Lost and Found by Phaedra Patrick. And I really enjoyed it. It was very light. It was very cheerful. It made me feel good. It made me feel like picking it up. It was everything I wanted. And it was basically about this woman who, in a British town, who does everything for everyone else, and she's middle-aged now, and she's unsatisfied with her life. And then she finds a copy of a book of fairy tales with the, oh, what do you call it when somebody writes in the front that the book's for you?
Inscription?
Like hand writes, like this is a gift.
Yeah,
What
an
is it?
inscription.
Inscription?
Mhm.
Inscription?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's inscribed to her from her grandmother, and it's dated 1985. And she's like, wait, my grandmother died in 1982. What's with this? And then she looks at the book and she discovers that the stories in the book, the fairy tales in the book, are stories that she and her grandmother used to tell each other. And that leads her off on a little journey. There's a little bit of mystery to it. There's the characters in the town are just delightful. They're like quirky, weird little characters. And I just enjoyed it so much, Steve. For a
I
first
love
book of
that
the year,
description that you
it
give.
was a
That
hit.
the quality of where a book makes you want to pick it up.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Not every book does that. Most of them don't. Even the good ones.
I
Most of
looked
them, even
forward every night. I'd be like, because I was at my mom's. So during the day, I was like doing things with mom. And at night, I couldn't wait to to settle in with the book and read a
I
little
love a book
more.
like that. I love that feeling. I haven't had it yet this year, but I
So
always look forward to it. It's worth stressing that even books that you acknowledge are good don't all have that quality. That's a special thing on its
no,
own.
no. I mean, sometimes there'll be like brilliant writing, but it's kind of a chore to read it.
Now,
Even though you
you've also been
recognize
reading
how
the Dresden Files, right?
I've been reading the Dresden Files. I am on maybe the 10th book now. I read 2 of them when I was home at my mom's.
And are you doing
Um,
that because you've just sort of informally decided that you're going to read the whole series? Just slowly read the whole
my
series?
nephew,
Ah,
my nephew wanted me to read it because he wants someone to talk about it with. And I think I was the one that got him started because I read books 1 through 3.5 um, long ago. And I think I bought him books 1 through 3 when he was a teenager, and he read them, and he's kept on reading them.
mhm.
And he uh, encouraged me to go back and read them so that he can have someone to talk about them with. And so now I've either read, I think I've read book 9, so I think I must be up to book 10, and I'm enjoying them.
They are enjoyable.
I'm reading them like one a book every couple weeks. So because I don't want to read them one right after the other, because that's what I did the first time, and I kind of got sick of them, and I wanted to read something else.
Yeah, they're not.
So this
That's not
time
a
I
series you
decided, nope,
can.
I'll space them,
Yeah.
and I'll read things between them. So I'm due to start another one.
Well, I'm reading Roman
I'm
history.
currently reading. Hmm?
I'm reading Roman history.
What about history?
Roman history.
That's always good. I
Yeah.
need to read more Roman
I'm
history.
reading a
That's
book
something I
called
want
The
to know more
War That
about.
Made the Roman Empire by Barry Strauss. I just
And
read today a book, The War That Made the
oh,
Roman
okay.
Empire. It's a book about Octavian fighting Mark Antony, and Mark Antony falling in love with Cleopatra, and all of it culminating in the Battle of Actium. And Barry Strauss says, that if the Battle of Actium hadn't gone to Octavian, if it had gone to Mark Antony, the Roman Empire would have been radically different. Of course, that goes without saying. I got to confess, the book was disappointing to me. I read it, and all I could think about was, what about all the detail you're leaving out? What about all the great, great accounts of Actium and Antony and Octavian that you're drawing on, but minimizing? Why does this book read this way? Why would you bother to write about Actium in such detail
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to write about it in all the detail? Why would you? This is
So
I
are they
read.
details that were picked to prove a certain point, as
No, no,
opposed
no.
to
He's
the
not
other
writing an
details that might
ideological
have?
book at all. He's just simplifying things. And the time period from the from when Julius Caesar was in his late 20s, thereabouts, from the time period when Julius Caesar was in his late 20s, all the way through his adulthood, all the way through the youth of Octavian, all the way through the career of Mark Antony, all the way through Actium and then into the reign of Augustus, of Octavian changing his name and becoming Augustus. That period is unbelievably well documented. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? Why am I reading a book like this where every chapter I'm thinking, but what about, but aren't you going to tell your readers about, but what about? It's very frustrating. And what I have to figure out before I write about the book is that a fault of the book? Or is it just that I know this subject so well that I'm impatient for the book to do more than what it wants? It's
Right.
totally unfair for me to criticize it if that's all it wants to do, but I have to figure that out.
As opposed to someone like me reading a book who doesn't
Right.
have all that knowledge.
Well,
and just wants
this is not the first time where I'm reading a book and thinking, what would Deb think of this? This is not the first time at all where I'm thinking, well, if you read this book, would you feel like there was something missing? You know, because you're familiar with a lot of other subjects, but you're not familiar with this to the same extent that I am. So I'm wondering,
right.
You read a chapter on Octavian's motivations. Would you finish it and say, well, that didn't really help me at all? And I feel like you could have helped me. I feel like you could have gone into more detail. I'll have to figure that out before I write about the book. But it reading The War That Changed the Roman Empire immediately sent me to my bookshelves. It sent me to, you know, all the other accounts, all the other historians that I have writing about that. So my book this time around was not a complete success. I'm going to read another one tonight.
That could be because you have a lot of knowledge on the subject.
I wonder about that. And if that's true, you know, what is the fair thing for me to do in a review? I don't want to condescend to the author. So I don't want to write in a review that this is good for a beginner. I don't think that's how he wrote the book. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. But tonight's book here, I've got the camera resting on it. Tonight's book is also a subject that I know really, really well, but I've already read the book and I love it. Philostomid bat.
Oh, I love a good bat.
I was using it for a stand for the camera, but it's all about bats that drink nectar. It's all about bats that flit from flower to flower and do that sort of thing. And it's terrific. I love it already. So I'm looking for, I will reread it tonight and I will read another new book tonight. And we'll see.
Nice. Well, I'm currently reading a book called The Death of Jane Lawrence.
Oh, right. That's a thriller.
Which is a novel.
Yeah, it got a lot of publicity. The publisher is really good. Are you liking it?
And so I think I'm about halfway through, and I haven't formed an opinion of it yet, but I'm still interested in it. So that's a good sign that I still care to finish reading it.
I often point out to my viewers, especially there, like I mentioned to you before we started recording, 2,000 new people are here since the last time that you made a visitor. I always point out to people what I used to point out to our customers at the bookstore, which is that Deb is the human version of Steve. And then sometimes I would have customers come in and I would say to them, well, do you want Deb or do you want me? What are you feeling today? Because you know what you're going to get with either one of us, and it's not going to be the same.
That's true.
If you needed any proof of that Deb and I, although we are very similar, are also very different, you got it in what she just said. Because you just said you're halfway through the book and you're not sure what you think of it yet. And that is not something you will ever hear from me. You will never. I know the first 10 pages what I think about the book.
Well, and I'm always willing to, because sometimes a book will start off brilliantly, and then by the end, I'm just like, oh, I can't stand this. I can't turn another page of this.
At the halfway point, you at least know that the book hasn't insulted you.
And sometimes, right? Well, I don't feel insulted, no.
Right, and it hasn't irritated you.
It hasn't irritated me. And sometimes you start off in a book and you're like, God, this is a sludge. And then it just turns and it becomes brilliant.
Yes. That's why.
Or you think, like, I don't know what the heck's going on in this book, but suddenly it all like comes together.
Yeah.
And
on BookTube, there's this DNF, do not finish.
Yeah. I
just drop a book. And that I understand it, but I always want to tell them what you just said. I always want to say, I have read so many books where if I had done that, I would have missed the fun stuff.
I never do that on purpose. I do it a lot where I get part of the way through a book and and then I get distracted by another book and I pick that up and I never go back to the first book. So it's kind of an unintentional DNF, but I always feel like I have not given up on that book. Like there is the possibility that I will return to it at some
So it
point in the
never
future.
happens that you're reading a book and you're saying to the author, you are so talentless that there's no way you're going to be able to pull this off. I am going to DNF this book because there's no hope.
I don't
You
think
always
so.
hold out hope?
I don't think so. I think I always hold out hope. I think the only thing that would make me totally DNF a book is if I hit a scene where there was some sort of animal torture, death kind of thing. That would make me just be like, nope, I'm not finishing this. I'll never finish this.
There's a book coming out in the early summer of 2022 that you're not going to want to read. Then it's
Okay.
a big, very detailed expose of the American meat industry.
No, see, I can't.
It's the parts that
I
I've
can't
read
go
are
near
very
books like
hard
that.
reading. But it is clearly meant to be the Upton Sinclair, the jungle for the 21st century. It is clearly meant. I mean, it's an expose. It's a profile of a lot of the people even the people who work on the killing floors. I don't know how this author got the interviews that he did. And he is not ideological in the book, but it is nevertheless clearly meant to make you a vegetarian. It's clearly meant it's clearly meant to remove the element of comfort that Americans have with their meat. You know, it's so comfortable. You don't have to think about what the animals are going through. The American food industry has made it so you don't have to think about that. And this book makes that impossible. You are going to think about it. You wouldn't read that book. But nevertheless, I think a lot of people are. I think it's going to get a lot of critical attention if it actually comes out on time.
Yeah, that is something I will not read about. I hear my heat coming on in the background.
You really?
Yeah, it bangs and tings, and anyone who's had that kind of radiator will know exactly what I'm talking about.
I had it forever and ever. I miss it. I miss that sound. Even though I know how cranky they can be, I still miss it.
When they come on, you know it.
Yeah. We have all the modern stuff here in the ducts, so it's all regulated by temperature. If the temperature goes below a certain point, the heat comes on. So on a really, really cold day, the heat will be cycling regularly. What's the matter? Am I buffering?
No, I looking off into the distance like you heard something that you were concerned about.
No.
You looked to your right.
So I'm not buffering.
And I thought maybe there was something going on that.
Right?
Yes, Steve, you are.
Well, thank you.
This is how you keep in his good graces, by the way, if anyone wondered.
Tell blatant, obvious lies.
Yes. And then you go to mass afterwards and say
go to mass afterwards.
Say your Hail Marys.
If you've been doing it long enough, the priest in the confessional booth will just say, "What'd you tell Steve this time? Faith and Picora, don't just keep lying to the man. You keep lying to the man." But anyway, that's our Manatee Monday. Are you up for committing to Manatee Monday next week?
But is today actually Monday.
Yes, you're as bad as I am. Today is actually Monday.
Book 2, we're doing Manatee Monday on a Monday. Yes, let's do a Manatee Monday next Monday.
But as long as I was about to caution them, I was about to say, just because we're doing Manatee Monday on a Monday doesn't mean that either Deb or I have our act together, but they already know that. So I don't need to tell.
That's true.
Because both of us at the same time had the same facial expression saying, "Is today Monday?" that is just bad.
Sad thing is I've said "is today Monday" about 5 times already today.
Well, anyway, we're going to wrap up the recording, and then I will try to upload this. So be prepared. If you watch this video, be prepared, because you know what's going to happen. They're not going to pay attention to me, even though they should. Instead, the comments are going to be all, "We love you, Dad. We love you, Dad." It's going to be the Barnes & Noble Cafe all over again.
Well, Steve.
I gave and I
They get
gave and
you
I
every
gave.
day.
Those miserable baristas. They never had anything nice to say about me just because I mocked them and their parents all day long. Couldn't
He
say enough
did.
things about you.
He did, and he would mock ones that didn't even know him yet. He would come in on their first day and mock them.
And then you would eventually find them out in the store somewhere
And
and
I'd
say,
be like, don't worry, he's just like that. He's like that to everyone.
anyway, it was wonderful to
Anyway,
see you.
what?
It was wonderful to see you.
You as well.
Your tiny little dog, a nose nudge for me.
I will. He is still sleeping. He is a
Dean
sweet
is no
little
longer
guy.
sleeping. Frida is now wide awake. She wants to go outside, so we will go do that. But I'm gonna stop recording.
All right.
So
Can I say goodbye to BookTube?
Yes. Goodbye. Say
Goodbye,
goodbye to
BookTube.
BookTube. We will see you soon.